Well, hello folks, hope you're well. It is oppressively hot today. Apologies if there's a little bit of noise in the background. We are running a fan to try and make this work. We're going to do a full rundown in this video of my hybrid pedal board that you see before you. The result of the best part of 6 months journey, if you like, that started with me getting the Boss GX10 and then gradually realizing the limitations of that for my purposes, and then getting the Rickenbacker and then realizing exactly what I needed to pull back in from the old setup. And I think you're going to hear that this is probably the best setup that we've had on the channel so far, and we're going to get straight into it. The first thing you'll see, and I got this directly from a recent That Pedal Show episode, is a pick tin containing my plectrums. You got to have that. Never done that before. Like that little touch, one of the little scraps of Velcro that I had left over. Now houses the pick tin. Let's go straight into the signal flow, shall we? Before we hear anything, I'll just tell you roughly what's going on. So we've got Rickenbacker 330 into TU3. TU3 is on all the time. No sound, because that's down. And that is running the whole show. So I can tune whether I'm making noise or I'm not making noise. I just thought that was a really cool thing to have. I've never done that before. You know, usually I use the TU3 as a mute. We don't need that. So it's just running the whole time. Really like nice, elegant solution to having a tuner visible the whole time. Then we've got the Keeley compressor. That is always on. That's in single coil mode. But of course I could easily switch it down to humbucker if I was using the Wilshire, which is a mini humbucker guitar. The Keeley compressor, a real quick thing with this. Basically, the way I was told is 1 PM on everything. And, you know, then obviously the best part about it is that it is a parallel compressor. You can see they're not all at 1 PM, but they're there or thereabouts. Then we go into the EQ pedal, Boss G7. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. Then we go into the Crowther Hotcake, which is an overdrive pedal. Quick little note on that. My setting for that is 1 PM, 11 PM, and then, you know, dial that in for the guitar that you're using. You can think of that rather than a presence control, it's more of a mid-range control. Then you're going to go into the Boss GX10 for everything else. The concept of this board is the result of me realizing that the most important thing on a pedal board is gain staging and EQ. And this deals with everything else. So let's start by looking at this. Obviously that's not a gain stage. That's a gain stage. That's a gain stage. That's a gain stage. All three of those pedals are also EQs. That's got a tone control. That is quite literally an EQ. That has a mid-range boost. So every single pedal on this board, apart from the tuner and the plectrum tin, is both a gain stage and an EQ. So I went to see Bonnie Raitt. How do you say that?
Isn't it right?
Bonnie Raitt. Probably ChatGPT that. Maybe you can correct me in the comments. I went to see Bonnie at the Wolverhampton Civic Halls recently, and I've been watching more guitarists like this guy recently. And the guitarist I'm talking about is a guy called Duke Levine. The band was amazing. He was incredible. And, you know, I've asked him to come on the channel. Such was his impact on me. So if you see a video of me and Duke Levine in the coming weeks, then now you know why that took place. His whole thing really was like, he was hardly ever, it seemed, stepping on pedals. I had a great view of him as well. I was like literally right over the top. I was in like the circle. I was right over the top. I was looking, and he was hardly ever stepping on pedals, really. You know, sometimes he wouldn't do any pedal changes for a whole song. And the main pedal changes that he was doing was either EQs, sort of subtle brightening or darkening of his tone, or level and or drive. An amazing player. Oddly enough, you know, when you're presented with a unit like the Boss, which is infinite options as far as like reverbs, delays, chorus, all the rest of it, what it forces you to do is to make you choose what you actually need for your rigs. And so that's where we're at with this. I've learnt this to the point that I know exactly, at the moment at least, what I love about that unit. And I've got the 3 things that I love most on 3 buttons here. And that's it. And the volume pedal. And I'm so glad I got this with the volume pedal, because that has become a huge part of my workflow. So what I'll demonstrate to you first is the gain staging. You'll notice I'm on the Ricky Gervais patch, and I am using the amp modeling in this today for speed. I've got to limit it today because this will be like a 3-hour video if we start bringing in amplifiers. Now, I'm using this exact board with my amplifiers, but obviously I'm using it in a slightly different way. I might touch on that today, but really today is more about the overall change, if you like. The change from having a board that is just like all your pedals and like, oh, I need an overdrive, I need a reverb, I need a delay, slapping them all on there. You know, you saw me slapping them on there. You know, I really do slap them on there. And thinking about it more as a signal flow. I'm sure this is not news to many of you, but like playing live a lot more this year has forced me into that decision. And it's been a game changer. So first of all, very quickly, we've got a twin and a JC 120. So this is the Johnny Marr inspired amp rig that I will do a video on. I haven't done it yet, but this is the dual amp setup. Now you can see that the compressor is already on. You wouldn't notice that. It's such a great compressor. It is transparent, but it's also a gain stage. That's a level, and it's also an EQ. This, I will show you, EQ. Very subtle, but very beautiful. It brightens the whole. You can hear that when I sweep, right? So that's there. That's just the clean, dry amps from here, the Fender Twin and the JC 120. Then it goes, let's move past that. We'll come back to that in a sec. The next layer of gain and EQ is the Crowd the Hotcake, the world's greatest overdrive pedal. That is the EQ here. This is pretty aggressive, this one. Let's just hear that now. So. Okay, so that's back. Then let's track back. I said to you before that this is like the turbo button, and you know, basically it's a low end boost and a sort of a mid-range boost. And listen to what it does to the overall signal. All of these changes on their own are like quite subtle, but when you hear where we get to and where we've come from, I think you'll be amazed at how kind of incrementally we've been able to travel through that. Obviously there's noise, as well as the fan noise. That's the stuff that I'm able to access live. I've already told you that this, as much as a live board, is a studio board. So I've got stuff in here that is also part of that signal chain that I can use for recording or for like these YouTube videos. The Crowd the Hotcake can get a bit, well, it's quite a sort of lively overdrive pedal. And for that reason, there is one more level. Well, there's sort of two more levels. If you look down here, there's a clean boost. I actually think that is like one of the best effects on the Boss GX10. That clean boost is brilliant. That is always on. That's been on the whole time. And then we've got a clone here for the final layer of drive. So that's how many was that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So clean boost, always on. Compressor, 2, yeah, 5. Here we go. Much noisier. And that's very much back in the territory of, you know. And that's as much as I need ever, really, apart from when I do my technical metal project. But we'll save that for another day. Let's rewind now. I'm just going to strum a chord and remove every layer. So, clon. Now the clon clone that I picked here, I picked that because it is a more mid-range, darker sounding overdrive. It perfectly complements what's going on. So here you go. Let's go back the other way. It's pretty savage, isn't it? Let's just, for a minute, consider that without those three pedals, I would only be able to go like this. Absolutely nothing wrong with that, is there? But it's kind of on or off. But with this, as I say, just so much more subtlety. I'm sure most of you will have an overdrive, an EQ and a compressor, even if you haven't got these. The way I thought about this, forget about the Boss GX10, is building that gain staging from clean all the way through to not clean before you go near everything else. The benefit that I've found with that approach is that you can really hone in on what you're trying to get sound-wise from a part. You know, it's not just with the, you know, without obviously going anywhere near the guitar, which we can do. That little chain is just a great way, you know, and even people who aren't using multi-effects, I think that idea of just building the signal, the gain staging first, is just a really good practice. Kind of new to me. I'm sure not new to many of you, but certainly I've never gone that deep on it and really got them interacting in a way that, you know, I think gets the best out of all of them. Oh, it's so hot. The next question I can hear the modeling people saying is, well, you know, you just need more foot switches. You could do that with, you know, multiple overdrives in there, clean boost, different compressors. I'm sure you could. You know, I would say make the most of what you've got. Now and that's what I've done. Let's now have a bit of fun. Obviously, that was the technical aspect covered. And I think this is where the creativity element really comes in. The Ricky Gervais patch here has got the Johnny Marr doubler. With the hot cake. They don't feel like my fingers today, such as the heat. Now with this, super glassy. We'll leave that alone and let's just now continue clean through this stuff. We've got the pitch shifter. There, that guy. Bosch on. Space echo. Or, depending on how I feel about it, digital delay there. Let's just hear that. They obviously work beautifully together. I'll just show you the digital delay vibes. Really cool. I remember having a conversation probably 12 months ago now about how I could live without reverb. And then I got the Boss GX10 and I was like, okay, they're. I wasn't that impressed, to be fair, when I first got it. And then I kind of figured them out and now I'm loving it. My attitude to reverb is if you're going to have it, let's hear it. Let's have a bit of fun, shall we? So, reverb on. Let's turn it up a little bit. That's a modulating reverb, which we've talked about before on the channel. The space echo. The chorus. Get into the bit. You know, this is what I'm always aiming for. Is that too much reverb? Possibly. So at this point, what I thought I'd do is just flick over to the acoustic show patch. If you've watched them, the acoustic shows, should we put a link on screen? That's a different patch. And essentially, I'm programming the modulation, delay, and reverb entirely depending on what the show is. You know, or what the guitar is another way of looking at it. That's a twin and a deluxe with the clean boost. So obviously we got that. Now I've been using the Strat for this, but this bit is the same. So what we've got here, we've got, again, the Johnny Marr chorus, I think set slightly differently. It's kind of a bit lighter, isn't it? We've got the space echo. Much crazier reverb, highly modulated. And of course that patch predates all of this, but works fantastically well. At this point, what I'll do is we will swap to the Strat. Oops. Fan's doing the job, isn't it? This has been designed with the Strat in mind. Works beautifully with the Strat. Let's go big. And so that's like as big as I've been getting at these strip back shows, which I think you'll agree is pretty large. Let's now flick back to the Rick patch and you'll hear what I mean about, you know, I could totally plug this guitar straight into it. Here we go. So back on Ricky Gervais. For my position 2 and position 4 exploits. There's one final thing to say about the setup that has changed in here. Obviously, I have got rid of the compression at the front of this chain because it's now here. What I've done, I've moved my compressor that was at the front of the chain, in other words, the only compressor in this chain as was before all this stuff. And it's now at the end of the chain. Just sounds more finished. So what I'm able to do, I'm able to just give the computer or like the front of house guy something that he just literally goes whoosh, and it sounds good. As you saw, I don't think Dave was just flattering me. He was just like, yep, that's cool.
That's pretty much golden, that is.
And that, I think, is the secret to working with sound engineers, is just to give them something, whether that's a recording or a live sound engineer, to give them something that is basically finished, that they don't have to think too much about, and they can concentrate on their job, which is balancing, you know, the live show. It's very subtle because, again, both of these are parallel compressors, but two of them, one at the start, just taming the signal on the way in, all through that, and then one at the very end before it goes out. And it's not doing a lot. I mean, obviously you can hear the buzz there, but you know, you're gonna get that from a Strat anyway. Bridge is really cool. This kind of gets a bit David Gilmour. That is all four gain stages and EQs, you know, simultaneously, and all of the fun stuff here. That is everything on, basically. Let's swap back to the rig, shall we? I hasten to add, I'm not doing a lot of playing, generally speaking, with that super high gain tone. There's one moment in the live show, which you might have heard me do that, you know, kind of works with it, if you've watched any of the vlogs. What's great about this, if I wanted a bit more gain, I don't have to then go into any kind of menu business. I can mess with them there. There's a gain pot there, there's a gain pot there, there's a gain pot there, there's EQ there, there's EQ there, there's EQ there. All of that stuff I can do on the fly. I hope that all makes sense, folks. If you have any questions about any of that, you know what to do, leave them in the comments. I obviously am, what, 2 or 3 weeks into this new setup, so it's still, you know, I'm still learning what it can do, and I've tried to show you a few things there, but I feel like we're barely scratching the surface. I could sit here all afternoon and tat about, and I know I've got other sounds out of it that you've not heard, but hopefully as we move forward on the channel, you'll begin to hear exactly what this beast can do. I think that'll probably do us for today. This has been a long old film today. I think more than anything because my brain is not functioning optimally because of this heat. Hopefully it'll be business as usual next week. If you've liked the video, please put a like on it. Give us a thumbs up. It really does help. And you know, comments as well. Love to have a chat in the comments. And subscribe. And come back next Sunday for more. Many thanks for watching. We will see you soon.